Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's show. My name is SHETAN NOIR, and this is High Strangeness in the Liminal Abyss. And this week's topics, um, one of them is a hot topic right now, and it has to do with cryptid creatures. Now, this was brought to my attention as posted on Facebook by two other researchers, William Braxton and Robert Crater. And it is in reference to the thylacine or the Tasmanian tiger, as some people may know it. Now, a recent YouTube video has surfaced where Forrest Gallant, who is a biologist, but also has had several TV series on where he goes and looks for extinct creatures. He was sent footage, and you can check out this YouTube. It's about a 55-minute video on Forrest Gallant's YouTube channel. And he was sent this photographic evidence of a reported thylacine sighting by a father and a son. He does interview the son, and I can understand Forrest wanting to get as much information as he can from the son as to every little detail about the photos, what they were doing, where they were going, why they stopped and took the pictures. But some of Forrest's tactics during the interview are almost badgering the witness, if you understand what that means, meaning that the gentleman was not comfortable revealing who he was for this report. And I can understand that. If he is not into cryptozoology, if he is not doing this to gain fame or anything like that, he doesn't want every news site in the country or the world, every YouTuber, every, um, reported, or journalist popping out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, we want your evidence." He contacted Forrest. He contacted an association that investigates thylacine reports in New Zealand and Tasmania. And he sent Forrest this information. Actually, it was a friend of his who found Forrest's information, and they weren't even sure that Forrest would even respond, but Forrest did respond. And Forrest goes through photo by photo of what was sent to him. And even Forrest himself says these pictures are very convincing. I am almost certain that these are pictures of a thylacine, but other researchers have stated that going back to past pictures of thylacines. Now, the last living thylacine reported had been living in a zoo there in Tasmania. It was not well cared for, as evidenced by the pictures and the video that you see of it. The animal was in what was then a somewhat appropriate enclosure. Zoos nowadays have gigantic enclosures for their animals. They are no longer put in like a boarding kennel for dogs. That's basically the way that I can describe the old big cat enclosures that you would have seen at zoos. They were basically about the size of a large horse stall, and the outdoor part was where people could see them, and then they had where they could go in through a closed door, and then they'd have a smaller indoor setting. And that was their life, living on a hard concrete floor. And if you go and you look on YouTube, old thylacine zoo pictures, zoo video, you'll see what I am talking about. This animal was not kept in immaculate conditions. As a matter of fact, he died because the zookeepers themselves left him out one night and he succumbed to cold temperatures. He literally died of hypothermia. So people are now saying that these recent pictures that have come forward, they look very close to a thylacine, but there's some differences. Well, I still say that's okay because you're comparing a wild animal that has lived on its own in the wild with no human, like, comforts, if you can call them that, to an animal that was kept in bad captivity and was not well taken care of. Yes, they probably fed it. It probably had a water source, but its body condition was not great because it was living on concrete outdoors and probably wood chips or straw, if that, for bedding in its indoor enclosure. Because they really don't show you that part. You see how its outdoor enclosure is, but you don't really see the indoor enclosures. Not a whole lot of animals want to lay on a hard surface or walk around on a hard surface 24/7 every day of their life. So people are saying that this wild animal that the father and son assumed had been hit by a car, and that's why it was laying off in the grass, they originally thought it was a dog. And that's why they stopped. They approached it thinking it had been a dog hit by a car, and they were going to try to get it and put it in the car, take it to a veterinarian. Well, they said that as they approached it, it popped back to alertness, and they said it made a meowing or a mew at them, which, not knowing, we have no recordings of what all the different vocalizations of a Tasmanian devil are. We might have one or two, but like with any species, they don't just make one sound. Foxes have over 20 different unique vocalizations that they make. So we can only assume that something like a thylacine, which really is in a class of its own, it's not feline, it's not canine. It's that weird subcategory where maybe the closest thing to it would be a hyena, which we know make a lot of different vocalizations. But they said it got up, it made some vocalizations at them, which they thought sounded like a cat's meow or a feline vocalization. And then it attempted to bluff charge them and then ran away. And they got various pictures of it this whole time. And then other cryptozoologists are saying, well, no, that can't be a thylacine. These little tiny variations are what make it fake. Well, no, because there are different structural variations that can happen in a species depending on its breeding population. So, if there is a lot of inbreeding going on within that territory of where that thylacine was seen, we would, or I would expect to see, now this is coming from my knowledge and background of showing and breeding dogs for over 20 years. The more inbred a line of dogs are, the more refined and the smaller, the typier they become. And that's what I see with this picture of the thylacine. It is very small, very refined looking compared to the pictures of the one that was in captivity. But we don't know what the genetic pedigree of the one that was in captivity was. We don't know where its parents came from because nobody took hair and tissue samples back then because DNA was not even thought of as something to track and use as markers for genetic profiling at that time. And we also, with this new picture that has emerged, we also don't know what the parentage of this animal is. Is it a mother to, son breeding or a father to daughter breeding? Is it a niece to uncle breeding or an aunt to nephew breeding or a grand um, parent to a grandchild breeding? Because when you get breeding populations that are breeding like that, you start to see changes in the appearance of the animal. And let's take case in point a modern dog breed that we have today. Go look at old pictures of bull terriers, of what the original AKC registered bull terriers looked like. And then look at the bull terriers of today. Looks like a completely different animal. You will see a change in the face shape, change in the body structure. And you can do this with several different dog breeds. You can look at what they looked like in the early 1900s to what they look like in the 2000s now. And you will see a lot of different variations, but they're all the same breed. That's where your current bull terriers came from. They're still bull terriers, even though those two pictures of those two animals look completely different. They're still bull terriers. So, with the breeding population probably very dispersed and spread out throughout the territories that they could possibly live in, the breeding possibilities are probably limited to its own genetic pack, meaning that you're going to have a lot of inbreeding going on. And if by chance you have a individual of one pack, assuming that they do live in packs similar to canines, they could be solitary. We don't know because we thought this species went extinct when the last one died of from exposure to cold weather in a zoo in Tasmania. If that very refined thylacine from its own breeding population, from inbreeding that's gone on for several generations, if that one ventures out far enough and breeds to thylacine from a different territory, that can also lead to a lot of genetic differences and appearance differences. So I think people who want to rule out the possible evidence need to take a look at actual animal behavior, breeding, inbreeding, all these different elements before they say, oh, that can't possibly be. Look, compare this photo to that photo. Okay, well, I can do that all day long with old pictures of known dog breeds to current dog breeds, and you tell me what they are, because I can tell you what they are. But that's just my thoughts on the matter. And I'm sure people out there will argue with me, but maybe I have more experience in different areas than they do. Maybe I have a different thought process on this than they do. But that's all we're going to talk about on this week's show. So until next week, go out there and explore this wonderful world and stay curious out there. Until next week, goodbye.